I'm Paulina Leiser, producer of Focus Today. Thank you for watching this video, and make sure to check our other videos at theDove.us.
Hey, welcome back. Delight to have in the studio with us our good friend Dennis Richardson. And he is running for Secretary of State of the state of Oregon. Couldn't be at a more important and appropriate time to have him in the studio and to have him as a candidate for this particular and important office. How you doing, bud? Good to see you.
Doing excellently, thank you. It's great to be
Where
here.
do you sleep, or do you?
No, I'm home for the weekends.
That's good.
I'm in Portland most of the time.
Why Secretary of State? I mean, some people say you're actually more qualified for this position than you were governor. I don't know if that's the case, but...
Well, there's a couple reasons. One is I can win this.
Yeah.
You know, the reason that I couldn't win as the governor's race was because of my social positions. I mean, they beat me up for being pro-life and being fiscally responsible and all those things.
Pro-family, all the 10 Commandments we just went through.
That's right, which is a great show, by the way.
Thank you.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
And so here we are in a situation where I'll have 72 auditors, and I can do what they're supposed to do, and that is to ensure that the people's money is well spent. And instead of auditing the programs and finding out why we have spent hundreds of millions of dollars on failed projects,
the agencies?
you know, why don't and the agencies, even Portland School District. I mean, why is it in Portland that you got one high school that's graduating over 90%, and then another one in the same school district that's closer to 50%? And of those that don't graduate, half of them end up in jail.
Wow.
And the money that's allocated toward those special needs kids gets spent on PERS for the high-paid teachers in the higher performing school districts. I mean, there's no accountability, no transparency, and no integrity in that office.
Well, thank you for running. And I just want to say to our viewers and listeners, how do they get a hold of you if they want to get involved in your campaign?
Oh, just go to DennisRichardson.com.
DennisRichardson.com. This is a very, very, very important race. And in light of now some of the legislation that's being proposed, I can't think of a more important person to be in that position. All right, I-28, it has got people on tilt. Some say the highest tax increase ever in the state of the history of the state, and others say per capita, possibly the largest tax increase in the United States. True?
It very well could be. It's increasing the revenue, if it goes through, and the estimates were accurate, by 25%. So it's a 25% increase in the state taxes. And it's based on the assumption that businesses will just sit here and take it. It's all based on paper, not reality, and such a tragedy.
Some say it is a backdoor sales tax. Sooner or later, the consumer pays for this.
Well, certainly, and it's even worse than a regular sales tax. A regular sales tax, when you buy something, you pay a percentage. In this instance, if the distributor generates more than $25 million of Oregon sales a year, he pays 2.5% tax on his gross sales, and then the middleman, so your manufacturer could pay it, the distributor could pay it, and then the retailer could pay it. And so it would be compounded. And where does that money ultimately come from? The consumers.
Well, we're hearing stories. We've interviewed businesses. The bottom line is their costs go up, and guess who pays for that? It's going to be the consumer, to the point where people can't afford to be in business. You know, so what incentive would there ever be for a business to move to Oregon if this passes?
I can't think of any, because even small businesses end up having to pay it, because they have services from insurance and utilities and products, and so when they buy it, they're going to be paying higher prices than they would pay someplace else, plus the taxes are higher here. It just is a disincentive for business for Oregon.
I got to say, even though the polls show it's going down, we shouldn't relax on this. This has to be defeated so bad that it'll never poke its ugly head up again. But how did it come about? Who's behind this?
Oh, the legislature and the governor's office are addicts, and the drug of choice is money, and they want more of it. The PERS costs are going up $885 million in the next budget. I mean, just think of what that really means. We're spending $1 billion a year on retirement, and in 5 years from now, that will be more than double. And so it's just an incredible cost of government, and they're saying we need money. And so they say, well, if we pass this, it'll be for education, you know, and all of that. But the reality is, it's just money that the legislature can spend any way that they want.
That's the point I want to make you have you make very strong, even though the sales pitch is education, always is education, and other things, other social services. But nowhere in this proposal is that money directly tied to any of those programs, correct?
That's correct. Besides, I was co-chair of Ways and Means. I understand how the game is played. And so if they normally would allocate, say, $100 million to education, and now they've got a new source of money, they don't say, okay, we'll just add that on. They say, great, we'll use that to pay education, and we'll move this other $100 million someplace else.
Right.
And so it's just another pool that can be drawn on by the legislature, and there's never enough money for them.
2.5% sales on gross sales to companies. I can't help but think that some of these guys are going to leave town.
Oh,
Well, I mean, that's their margin. That is their profit.
That's right.
It's higher than their profit.
I mean, just in Southern Oregon, Lithia can't stay in business in Oregon.
Yeah.
They will have to leave. And they're fourth-generation Oregonians. They don't want to leave. They don't mind paying taxes, but they don't want their tax to go up 10%. Excuse me, 10 times.
Yeah.
It would go up 10 times what it is presently. And that's just incredible.
And they're gone.
And they're gone. They have to move.
Yeah. What happens to Oregon? I mean, how much waste is going on, from your opinion, from your experience, your former positions, Ways and Means and others, how much waste is happening in Oregon that can be saved?
Oh, there is a huge amount. It's like a patient who's bleeding, right? And so the doctor comes in, he says, give us more blood. Well, no, you stop the bleeding first, right? And so our budget is bleeding. If you look at just three programs, the business energy tax credits, it was almost $1 billion of revenue that didn't come into the state because it went to businesses, and instead of helping the environment and helping energy be more efficient and more environmentally sound, it just was used to bring in more money to these businesses. Some brokers were able to get special deals, sweetheart deals, and there's been no full audit of what happened. Same thing with Cover Oregon, over $300 million, and now we're involved in a lawsuit that's going to cost $25 million against Oracle, and there's been no audit, no lessons learned. It's just avoid anything that will bring controversy to the ruling party. I mean, one party doesn't work, whether it's Republicans or Democrats, over time, and so we need the checks and balances that were invested in and provided for in our Constitution.
You know what's interesting about that, Dennis? Ironically, one of the best and most productive sessions you had is when it was evenly split.
Yes, it was.
Wasn't it?
It was, because both sides had to agree for things to move forward.
Yeah.
And so the fringe kind of bills on either side were just not proceeded with. I mean, I was very much involved in that as co-chair of Ways and Means, and at the end of that session, I tried to get both the Democrats and the Republican leaders to agree to do it the following session, regardless of who took the majority in the next election. It didn't get anywhere.
All right. Most will say that the Tri-County area in the northern part of the state is the dog that wags the rest of the state. You would think that big companies up there say, all right, wait a minute. We got the minimum wage going up. We got I-28 sitting on the shelf coming at us. The regulations, we can't afford to do this. Isn't that enough to change your thinking?
Well, the driving force in the capital are the public employee unions. I mean, the teachers union, AFSCME and others, they look ahead and they say, we need money. They see what's happening with PERS. They want to make sure that, that you don't have cuts, and so they don't care about the consequences to private business. It's estimated by the Legislative Revenue Office, a neutral office, that there's going to be 38,000 jobs in the private sector lost if this goes through. 38,000 Oregon jobs that'll disappear.
Not to mention this crazy formula they came up with, the minimum wage. I mean, how could you possibly pass this formula?
It's the leaders in the legislature and the governor herself. They're not experienced in business.
No, not
they
at
don't
all.
understand. None of them, to my knowledge, has ever had to go without getting paid to make sure that their employees got paid. I mean, I've done that. I've been there, and every business owner has been there, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to make sure that your investment is covered, and that your people are your key to your good investment. And so if you never have to do that, if your whole career has always been getting paid by tax money directly or indirectly, then you end up saying, well, we just need more money.
Yeah.
They don't think in terms of the consequences of their actions long term.
Well, I got to tell you, of all the races, and they're all important, don't get me wrong, they are very important, no matter from city to county up to state. This Secretary of State opportunity for Dennis Richardson to become Secretary of the State of Oregon couldn't be more important and more significant as we go into this cycle, especially with these incredible bills that are before us that could possibly become law. You would be the guy, I can't imagine what it would be like having you there. I mean, it would be wonderful. I mean, you would turn the tables and say, hey, wait a minute, stop. We got to live within our means. Let's take a look at this. And
to expose what's going on will cause ramifications throughout our state and actually across the country, because I believe that voters will decide that one-party rule is not serving Oregon well.
It's not working well. All right, you got education that gets all the money. I don't know, is it performing? You got ODOT that it seemingly got problems, and the list goes on. I mean, have you prioritized? Where do you start?
Oh, it's a target-rich environment, and it's hard to know really where to start. So what I've thought is I need to start where the people are most vulnerable. The Department of Human Services, for instance, their foster care division. Week after week up in the Portland area, we're seeing new allegations and new lawsuits for abuse, physical, sexual abuse of our children that are in foster care, even starvation, starving these little kids, and they deserve to be protected. And yet there's no accountability. There's no responsibility, even if somebody gets caught and they say, okay, well, they're no longer the director here. Right. But they don't get fired, they just get moved to some other agency. Oh, that's amazing. It's incestuous and it needs to be opened up.
Yeah. Well, Dennis, thank you. Again, DennisRichardson.com if they want to get involved. And this is a race you need to get involved in. We'll keep you posted, keep us posted as we get closer to this thing. But right now, it looks like I-28 will go down in defeat, but we can't count on that.
No, we must always act as if we're behind. We need not just contributions, but commitment to make sure that we can restore our state and not let it get further to the left.
Where do they go to support the defeat of this?
You? Well, they can contact us, but if they go to defeatthetaxonoregonsales.com.
Okay, defeatthetaxonoregonsales.com.
That's right.
Long name, impressive place.
Really.
Good to see you. Best to you, friend. All right, we'll be right back.